Glenn, you said Isaiah 9?
Yeah, the prophecy in Isaiah 9:6, I think, is a
So why
place
does
where we can
Islam need
go.
to be continuity with Isaiah 9 to be true?
Sorry, say that again?
Why does Islam need to be in continuity with Isaiah 9 in order to be true?
Because Islam teaches that it has come as the seal of the prophets and as a covenant for the previous prophets. And it would be referencing
Why
the
does
previous
Islam say that
prophets.
you must?
And if I could finish, it references that it has come as a seal for the previous prophets of the children of Israel. So if it contradicts one of the teachings of the previous prophets that was given by God in the Old Testament, they're in specifically Isaiah's prophecies, it contradicts that teaching.
What's the
Then
argument
it
that
can't.
Isaiah 9 represents what the prophet taught?
Well, if it's something that he taught about the coming Messiah, then it would just be something he taught. Simple as that.
How do you know that?
Well, that's the context of Isaiah 9. We have to go there to read it, right?
No, I'm saying, how do you know that it goes back to Isaiah?
Oral tradition and manuscript tradition, but really oral tradition.
Yeah, give evidence for that. Give any of those. I need evidence. Any of those claims.
Yeah, so the Jews would have had a strong oral tradition that they kept preserved from the time of the prophets. They also have their targums and writings which give commentary to these
Can you give me the old
things.
transmission for Isaiah 9? Can you give me the old transmission for Isaiah 9, please?
If it's oral, it's not specific names. It's just a tradition that has been held and that has been written down as well in manuscript traditions too.
Yeah, so
like
what
the
is
Isaiah,
the tradition
like
that relays that Isaiah 9 goes back to Isaiah? What's the argument for that?
yeah. So as I said, there would be a strong oral tradition which was recorded in the written manuscript. If I could finish, a strong oral tradition that is proven because it's then written down in the manuscript traditions we have, including the Isaiah scroll and the Dead Sea Scrolls as well.
Show me.
Yeah. So as I said,
Show that.
Yeah, so as I said, we have written documents of the Jews preserving their commentaries.
Evidence?
You want me to show you like the targums and the commentaries which show that they had this oral tradition?
Yeah, I want demonstrable evidence that Isaiah 9 specifically goes back to Isaiah.
Yep. So again, I gave you the evidence. It depends if you want to take it or not.
You made a claim. No, Bible, brother, you made a claim. You just said old tradition.
Right.
That is proven.
And I said...
One second. And written manuscripts. That's what you said. Now, guess what? I'm going to ask for evidence. Sounds good?
Yep. So, if I could respond.
So what is the evidence?
Yeah, so if I could respond.
What evidence?
The evidence for the oral tradition itself would be in the written targums which explain that the Jews had these traditions already of these prophets that were written down. And also the evidence for the oral tradition would be in the manuscript traditions we have, which have written down the prophecies and sayings of these prophets.
Which targum are you referring to?
I could pull some up because there are targums on Isaiah. So let me pull some of them up for you.
Give me the dating for those, please.
Yeah. Let me pull up Safaria. Targums. Let's go to this one. Let's see what this one says. All right. One second. Just pulling it up for you. Excuse me. Yeah, so I have pulled up right now Tarum Jonathan. I believe this one's yeah. So the dating for this Targum, let me pull it up for you. I believe it's the late BC period to early AD period. I don't have specific. I need to get a specific date for you. 1 second.
No, I need a date.
Yeah, 1 second. Let me just search it up. Okay. Yeah. So Tarum Jonathan dated to about, this says the 7th, 12th centuries, which would be what I was talking about, this tradition that they have where they write in their Targums. This is the one I'm talking
7th, 12th century BC? Wait,
80.
7th, 12th?
No, I said 80. This is one of them. This is showing their tradition.
80 what? 80 what?
Yeah, AD, like Common Era. And I'm not done. Let me get another one for you.
When did Isaiah live? 1 second. When did Isaiah live?
Well, I'm going to build a cumulative case, right? But Isaiah did live in the 7th century BC.
1 second, just step by step. When did Isaiah live, brother?
I just answered. He lived in the 7th century BC.
Okay. And what is the dating of what you're speaking of right now?
Yeah, so Tarum Jonathan, one of the written Targums which show that tradition being held and preserved, comes from the 7th century AD. So about 1,000 years later, they're writing this commentary.
1,000 years later.
Yeah.
1,000 years later, is that right?
Yeah, that's one of them. Let me get you another one.
So that proves nothing. So you can throw that in the bin. So what's next?
No, it does, because again, as I told you,
No, it doesn't.
What these things prove is that there was. If I could answer, please don't cut me off. Please don't cut me off. Because what I said is that what these things prove is that there was this tradition that was preserved throughout with the Jews throughout time. I'll also give you this one.
No. I think you're confused.
I'll also give you this one. One sec.
Let me help you, brother.
So I don't need help. If you want to make a point, just make a point. Okay. But I don't. No, I don't need help. I gave you an answer. Please respond to what I said. I don't need. I didn't tell you I need help.
Is that there is an early transmission and corroboration of Isaiah 9 that has a common link as early as Isaiah or the time of Isaiah. Mm-hmm. That's how you use a quote unquote oral tradition, which you don't have anyway.
Yeah,
you have mass disconnect in the chains of transmission, which means if there is an old tradition, it's a weak one, and therefore it can't be used to justify your conclusion. It doesn't work.
Yeah, so if I could respond to that.
So try again.
Yeah, if I could respond to that. The reason I was bringing up... I was muted, sorry. Yeah, so if I could respond... If I respond to that... Wait, sorry, one sec. Targum, Jonathan, let me... Yeah. While I respond to that...
Have you read any books on this topic?
If I could respond... I'm not finished. If I could respond to what you said...
I haven't read any book. Okay.
I'm responding what you said. So respond to what you said...
How he establishes sound ordinance.
I'm not... I didn't even start speaking. Yeah, so in response to what you were saying... Again, the reason I brought up, for example, Tarum Jonathan, and I believe there might be early dating to this, but I have to just search it up real quick. But yeah, the reason I brought up Tarum Jonathan is to show that the Jews do have a tradition that is preserved in these writings. What these writings are showing is that there's a tradition that was preserved, that was written down, because the Jews, as we know, had their scribes, their Pharisees, that would record these understandings and interpretations of the law.
So exactly.
So,
how do you know that?
If I can continue,
no.
I'm not done. Please don't. I didn't cut you off. When I spoke, they muted me. When I spoke, I was muted. So if I'm speaking, please don't cut me off.
Stop talking.
Why are you cutting me off?
Scribes were numerous.
Let me land my thought, please. Well, that counts me after, because when I tried to challenge you, you cut me off. So can I finish?
Just control yourself, brother. How do you know that the scribes corroborated the text of Isaiah as early as the time of Isaiah? How do you know that?
Yeah, so...
Without begging the question.
Yeah, so if I could finish what I was saying...
Go ahead. I apologize. Go ahead.
That's fine. If I could finish what I was saying, the dating that I searched up for Tarum Jonathan is a bit late. The dating on Safaria's website is actually within the 2nd to 4th century BC. Actually, 2nd century BCE, which would be the BC area, which would be closer to Isaiah's time, and up to about the 4th century CE. So within the 2nd century BC to the 4th century AD. So that would be actually the writing for Tarum Jonathan on Isaiah. And to respond to what you were saying...
Isaiah live? What's the gap now? What's the gap between Isaiah and your dating now?
Yeah, so it would be a gap around 400 or 500 years. And if I could finish what I was saying, what these things show is that there were traditions that were preserved throughout time. Now, you're asking for an arbitrary standard of preservation of these traditions, specific names and corroboration like this. I'm not obliged to give you your specific standard, but what I can show is that since we have these targums and these manuscripts written down, these preserve a tradition that we have names of specific rabbis and specific targums that preserve the teachings of...
Give me the names.
I just gave you one. Jonathan. We have the Dead Sea Scrolls with Isaiah scroll in it. So we have that. We have the Septuagint, which preserves Isaiah as well.
Let's do one by one.
Yeah.
Let's do one by one. Let's not jump around. Okay. Let's do source by source. Sounds good. So the first one that you brought is minimum 500 years, right?
Yeah, that would be Tarum Jonathan. Yeah.
Okay. Good. Now, do you have anything earlier than that?
Depends when you did this Dead Sea Scroll of Isaiah. But if not, then I don't have on me right now.
Anything on you earlier than that or no?
I said it depends where you date the Dead Sea Scroll of Isaiah.
Okay, do you know of anything? Do you have anything on you now that dates earlier?
On me now? No. This would be the thing I brought up.
Okay, so you don't have anything on you now.
Yeah.
So what you have on the table is something 500 years after Isaiah that you think it's valid. Let me ask you this, Glenn. Let me ask you this. If I was to bring you a hadith about the messenger that was in circulation 500 years after the messenger, and I want you to be dead honest as you're answering me this, would you believe that's authentic to the messenger?
I mean, it depends. Like, I don't know your Islamic, how you guys understand these hadiths and things.
So, same standard. Look, pay attention. Same standard. Something that only comes into circulation 500 years after the messenger, Muhammad. Would you believe it that it goes back to him?
Yeah, so if there's multiple attestation to this hadith, then I could have good evidence to believe that it'll go back to him. I don't see why it wouldn't.
Okay, and the multiple attestation, that attestation must be earlier than the 500-year period, right, Glenn?
Depends. I mean, if it's attested to whether within the 500-year period or around that time or even after, as long as it has that strong attestation to it, it could be.
Just to be clear, Glenn,
I don't have a problem.
There can be zero attestation for the first 500 years, and then attestation only begins 500 years later, and you would accept that?
Like we could still understand that there were traditions that were held that are preserved years later. That doesn't negate the fact that these would show and give evidence to previous traditions, right?
No, I don't think you understand. Just pay attention.
Nothing is
in circulation. Just 1 second. Nothing is in circulation for the first 500 years, and circulation and corroboration for the event only happens 500 years later. Do you accept that?
Well, then yes. In the case of the hadith and the targums, yeah, the evidence I'm giving, which I'm choosing to show, if I could finish my part though, yeah, that'd be the case. That the evidence I'm bringing the evidence I'm bringing to show that this tradition has been preserved can be dated later, like for example this targum being dated about 400 to 500 years later, but would be sufficient to show that this tradition was preserved.
Okay, so number one, given the fact that the earliest evidence that you have is 500 years after Isaiah, what is your epistemic justification? And pay attention, and please don't repeat the source, because the source is the very thing in question. What is your epistemic justification that this was in circulation, and not only in circulation, but goes back to Isaiah? What is your epistemic justification for that? Without using the source, because the source is the very thing in question.
Yeah, so I will use the source. I'm not questioning it. I disagree with your understanding of questioning it. I'll again use this source and multiple.
I'm not questioning it. I disagree with your understanding of...
Just kick me off. Well, guys, that is how you handle debate. It is what it is, right? So God bless you guys. Have a wonderful evening. Stay blessed. Get good rest. All the best. And at the end of the day, let God take care of the rest. Bible level 1, 2, 3, 4. Ow.
Celebrating Jesus tonight. We sing praises.
We sing praises to our King, for He is the King of Kings. We sing praises to our King, for He's the King of Kings.
Everybody sing Jesus tonight. We sing praises.